Welcome to Sarder TV, an idea-sharing platform founded by Russell Sarder, who's an author, investor, and the CEO of Netcom Learning. We're excited to have Kevin Kelly join us today. Kevin is the Director of Education Programs at Amazon Web Services, and he's here to tell us more about the future of L&D and cloud computing. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background and your experience.
I lead AWS education programs within AWS training and certification, and I lead a set of cloud skills education programs that are designed for learners as young as 12 years old, all the way to adult learners that are looking to learn the cloud for the first time or upskill their existing cloud skills. I've been an experienced developer, solutions architect, technical trainer, and I'm really passionate about helping the next generation of cloud builders and creating that next generation of cloud-ready talent, because ultimately that helps our customers by providing them the resources they need to tackle some of the challenging problems that they're trying to use the cloud to help solve.
Sure. And how long have you been with the organization?
I've been with AWS for over 12 years, so I've really had an opportunity to see the cloud evolve. When I joined, we had just a few services, and now we have over 180 services. And so it's really been nice to see the evolution and the development of the platform and the technology and the things our customers are doing with it.
Tell us a little bit more about cloud computing. Give our audience a little bit of an education to make it real. How do we interact with the cloud on a daily basis?
Well, I think whether you realize it or not, most of us are interacting with the cloud on a daily basis in ways that we're aware of and in ways that we may not be aware of. Essentially, cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet. And what's unique about it is it uses a pay-as-you-go pricing model. So instead of having to buy and own and maintain a lot of physical hardware and data centers, you can access services that would normally be provided by those servers, but you don't have to maintain them. And so you can gain access to things like compute, storage, network, database, bandwidth on an as-needed basis, and then only pay for what you're actually consuming or using. And you do that through cloud providers like AWS and others. AWS powers quite a few customers that I'm sure you're familiar with. Customers like Airbnb, Netflix, and Zoom all run on AWS. So when you're using them, you're actually using AWS as well. And the world is becoming increasingly more digitized, and we're seeing a growing need for cloud skills. And AWS TNC, training and certification, has programs that make a positive difference in helping people prepare for some of those cloud roles. For example, Amazon is committed to help 29 million people get access to free cloud training computing skills between now and the end of 2025. The cloud is pervasive. It's in a lot of the products that you're using, and it really represents a unique model for customers big and small to gain access to compute, storage, network, database as services.
How is this different than what things were like 10 years ago or even 20 years ago when it comes to things around computing and storage?
Yeah, as recently as 5 or 10 years ago, if you wanted access to a large amount of compute or storage, you had to build a data center yourself and host lots and lots of racks of servers and storage. And you had to maintain them and update them and refresh them and replace them periodically. All of that usually has nothing to do with the business that you're actually in. It was an enabler for you to do the kind of things you wanted to do to help your customers. And so the cloud presented a unique opportunity to provide all of that as a service in a pay-as-you-go model so that we don't have to have all of those separate data centers. It's more efficient. We need fewer servers when we do this, so it's more economical. And if you're a smaller company, building a data center was almost never an option, even if you needed that amount of compute and storage. And so providing it as a service really means a company of any size can gain access to the kind of power and capacity that was only available to large companies that had enough inertia and capital to build their own data centers. So it's really been a revolutionary kind of change in the industry that democratizes access to compute, storage, network, database, and lets companies of all sizes follow whatever idea they have and not let lack of capacity be a restraining factor.
So as the Director of Education Programs, you mentioned you've crafted, created, and are leading programs for kids as young as 12 and up. Tell us a little bit more about those programs.
Yeah, I love talking about these programs. We have programs that are targeting higher education, so colleges, universities, 2-year, 4-year, Polytech, Votech, K through 12 schools, so children as young as in kindergarten, education technology companies or ed techs in the space, and learning companies that are our partners, all help us deliver these programs. So one program we have is called Get IT, and this is a program for young learners where we're encouraging young women to consider careers in tech. And we want to challenge some of the gender stereotypes within our industry. This program is active in the UK, Ireland, and Germany. We're expanding next year into more countries. We created the program for 12 to 13-year-old students, predominantly young women, who get to design an application from start to finish, and applications that focus on making a tangible change in their local area or school system. And so this program culminates in a competition where the teams get together and compete within the country and then compete outside of the country with other countries for the applications that they've designed. We also have a program called AWS Academy, which targets the higher education market. So we give educators at academic institutions curriculum, courses, material focused on areas like architecting, developing, systems operations, data analysis, machine learning, so that they don't have to build the content. But beyond that, we provide the educator and the students labs so that the students can gain hands-on experience in a production deployment kind of environment like AWS. And we provide this at no cost to the higher ed institutions because we really want them teaching the cloud to as many students as they can. And we want to make their ability to ramp on those topics as easy as possible. We also have a program called AWS Restart, which is a 12-week program that's focused on full-time development for people that are interested in reskilling into entry-level cloud roles. So we deliver this globally, and we're training a diverse set of learners for these entry-level positions, and they're coming to us from hospitality, food service, retail, coming out of the military and transitioning into the civilian workforce. And we're giving them an opportunity to reskill in the cloud, regardless of their background, and get jobs in operations focused on things like site reliability and infrastructure support. And the program connects these graduates with local employers. So we don't just train them, we actually help them get that first job. And we really, we want success to mean a smiling face, holding a badge as employed. A final program I'll talk about is TechU, which is an accelerated career development program for new employees coming into technical roles like technical trainers, solutions architects, professional services consultants at AWS. So this is a program we built for recruiting people right out of higher education systems, colleges and universities, and bringing them into our company, into these entry-level roles with some in-depth experiential sprint-driven training that lasts for 6 months, culminates in a capstone project, and they get to develop some professional skills to give them confidence when they start in one of those roles.
How successful have these programs been? They sound great.
We've had a lot of success with the programs in Get IT. We've actually trained over 23,000 young women in the UK, Ireland, and Germany. In Restart, we've trained thousands of people who are reskilling into those entry-level cloud roles. And it's super gratifying when we help those people get a job in an industry they may never have thought they were going to work in. Our Academy program, this year we're reaching over 100,000 learners in institutions all over the world and providing them introductory cloud level training all the way to the advanced topics like security and machine learning. That's gratifying, whether they're in a computer science or computer engineering program, or we have our foundation cloud material being taught in medical school programs, because those programs have realized that medical professionals are using the cloud every day. And the data systems that back them, and making them cloud aware is important to those educators for those programs. We even have programs like film production that are teaching the cloud, because a lot of film production today is animation and rendering that's done on the back end via the cloud. So it's really gratifying to be involved in these programs and have the kind of successful results we're having in helping people get the kind of jobs that they would really like to get in an industry that is starving for cloud talent.
Tell us a little bit more about that. What are some of the skills gaps that you're seeing in this space?
The skills gaps are pervasive, and they're at every level. So certainly on a topic like machine learning, there's a shortage of skilled machine learning professionals. But what's interesting is it's not just a shortage of PhD level data scientists. It's also a shortage of people at the entry level who are helping ingress the data into these models, homogenizing the data, running algorithms against the data to keep the models fresh and trained properly. So there's a continuum of roles in all of these spaces. Security is very similar. There's a need for high-level security experts, but there's also a high need for entry-level cybersecurity people who can help with some of the routine monitoring and identification of threats. So all of these roles, from solutions architect to developer to systems operations, there's a continuum of experience required at different levels, and they're all looking for people. So when we have programs that are teaching 4-year degree people, or we have programs, a 12-week program that's reskilling people for entry-level positions, we're trying to feed a pipeline of learners into this system at several different levels, including, going all the way back, to 12 and 13-year-olds that we're trying to keep interested and inspired around pursuing a STEM career.
So would you say at the higher levels of learning, training, jobs, whether that's entry level to, the higher, do you feel that there are certain fundamental technical skills or a certain baseline knowledge that's required in order to succeed in a career around cloud computing?
There certainly is, depending on level. So there's a set of fundamental skills around what is storage, what is compute, what are the options for launching and de-launching compute, network fundamentals, security fundamentals related to the cloud. But we're also discovering that there's a set of professional skills associated with small team problem solving that's very useful in this space, because that's how a lot of the work actually gets done by small teams, and then small teams collaborating with other small teams, and so on until you get a large effort completed. And there's been a lot of focus in our programs on helping develop those skills. So in our Restart program, for example, we are focused on some of the professional skills around, why is there a whiteboard in every IT conference room, and what do they do with it? Well, we talk about what happens, when small teams get together to do troubleshooting and problem solving, and what are the skills required at the entry level and at the mid and the professional level for learners to acquire so that they can be successful in those environments. So there's certainly a set of technical skills that are required, but there's a set of professional skills that are also very useful that we've identified and we're teaching in our programs, so that we're setting everyone in the roles to be successful.
So for folks who are looking for maybe a career change or to reskill or upskill their skills in technology, cloud computing, where do you recommend people start?
Individuals can be introduced to the cloud as early as possible. And quite frankly, I think we need to start talking about reading, writing, math, and digital skills all in one sentence when we think about what are the basic educational skills that learners at all levels coming out of academic and institutions, whether it's K through 12 or higher ed, need. School-age children in the UK and Ireland and Germany using our Get IT program are getting an introduction into app building through a fun competition with applications on topics that they're passionate about and care about. And using Get IT, we've been able to reach 23,000 students in over 135 schools in EMEA that have taken part in this kind of education. So we're introducing learners at an early age to these topics. At higher ed, with our Academy program, we're working with thousands of universities globally. And a recent example is Howard University, where we've collaborated with them and their School of Mathematics and Science, where they're introducing their students to computational thinking skills and cloud fundamentals as part of the curriculum in their programs. And this collaboration lets us bring industry experiences into the classroom to help them create the next generation of builders coming out of Howard University so that their students are cloud aware. So our goal is, whether you're a mid-career person that's changing into a cloud role, or you're in the academic pipeline, K through 12 or higher ed, that we're preparing you with the skills that you need for this digital world, reading, math, science, and digital skills, so that everyone's prepared for the roles.
So what are your thoughts on how the future of work will be impacted by the fact that we're just moving to an increasingly digital world?
I think there's been a greater realization over just how big the cloud IT skills gap is with the pandemic, which has forced a lot of organizations to figure out how to work remotely, virtually, and leverage digital technologies in a way that they were probably preparing for, but their timelines got moved up with the urgency of having to implement those services to respond to the pandemic. So, with lockdowns happening, we saw a surge of interest in training and our training programs from people who were completely new to the cloud that had an opportunity to investigate a career change. They were looking for fundamental training, all the way to seasoned professionals who were looking to take some advanced courses in areas like machine learning and security and others. Our fundamentals course at AWS Training and Certification saw 152% more learners year over year from May 2019 versus May 2020. So from a training perspective, we've seen a lot of increased interest at all levels for people who want to get themselves skilled up on digital technologies and specifically the cloud.
So in terms of digital training, digital learning, generally for organizations, there have been challenges around the training aspect, implementing it, sustaining it. Tell us a little bit more about those challenges, perhaps heightened during this time, during the pandemic, especially when in-person training was so limited. What are some of the challenges that you've seen, and how can those be overcome in the years to come?
Employers need to look at what is it that they want to train for. So cloud talent is scarce. The pandemic caused a shift in where people are learning, but it didn't really change what they need to learn. The modality may have changed to accommodate a lockdown or a pandemic, but the actual skills that are required and the scarcity of skills, particularly around the cloud, didn't change. So a focus on entry-level talent is important, and having organizations become aware of the skills gap and how to address it. We generally talk about a couple of things. One is think about your workforce today and working backwards from your customers and your requirements. What is it that you need? When you look at entry-level talent, we really want you to think about hiring new learners, entry-level talent that is essentially cloud native from the beginning. And so they don't come with baggage of decades worth of legacy technology and thinking. And they don't have bad habits to unlearn. And these individuals can challenge and bring a different approach to how they want to solve problems with cloud technology. And this new talent can actually enhance your existing experienced employees. So it gives you the ability to build teams with mixed level of talent. So you can provide your experienced talent with and augment their teams with new talent. And investing in this entry-level talent then frees up some of this more experienced talent to work on the higher-level tasks. It also becomes an interesting retention mechanism, and that having a mixed team of varying levels of talent actually creates a more enriching environment for your experienced level talent, who can begin coaching and developing this entry-level talent. So instead of having a bench of all experienced people, you can have a mixed bench, and that having a more diverse team in terms of the mix of talent you have actually becomes a retention mechanism for keeping those experienced people, but also developing this entry-level talent, this digital native talent internally.
It's very interesting to see how different generations learn in the workplace. What are some of the things that you've learned about the different work generations and how they interact with each other and how to best engage them in learning? Because different generations probably learn differently, and they want a different type of experience as they are learning, as they are in training. Tell us how you've been able to sort of manage both.
Yeah, it's a lot of the next generation of cloud builders that we're helping train. I'm convinced, they were born with a cell phone in their hand, and so for them, cloud native and digital skills, it simply becomes second nature to them in a way that's different from learners of my generation, who essentially had to learn a lot of those skills as they were being developed and emerging. When we are building training programs, especially training programs that are targeting younger learners, for our K through 12 learners, we are building programs that are focused on inspiring these learners to stay focused on STEM topics. And we're creating more tactile projects and programs around IoT devices, so that we're bringing the cloud directly into the classroom with devices that they can put in their hand and use. And then making the leap to, well, where's all the data going? And when I'm visualizing the data, working with the data, that it's backed in the cloud, becomes an easier concept to help them work with. As we progress towards the higher ed learners, we're building programs that are allowing team-focused project work, since that's one of those important professional skills that they're going to need in the industry, but also helping them fold machine learning, data lakes, global reach into the projects that they're building. And so a lot of the projects they build are around compute for good topics. So in our programs, we've had learners build, what do we do with excess food from restaurants at the end of the evening? And how could we efficiently distribute it to shelters and food kitchens? And so helping them work on problems that they're passionate about, like that around compute for good, while teaching them how to leverage at scale what the cloud can bring to helping them build solutions, has been a really interesting way to engage the learners on problems that they care about. And even in the Get IT program, when they build these application designs for programs to impact their local community, by bringing the cloud to some issues and problems that are local to them, we've had a lot of interesting development of the projects they build, but also a way of engaging those learners. And then on our corporate learning platform, we have over 500 free digital modules that are very tactile. And so for learners that have experience that want to do a very tactical, short sound bites of learning and consume pieces of learning that I search for very specifically because I'm troubleshooting and I'm trying to solve a problem, we have to accommodate those learners as well. And by creating a library of smaller digital training that can be used in that mode, 1 to 3 day training courses, all the way to 12-week or 6-month training courses, we've had to build a continuum of these kind of learning venues and modalities that help different learners at different stages, but also accommodate their different learning styles.
And how do you measure the impact of your training programs?
Certainly we have traditional mechanisms like surveys and asking students how they're doing. We have knowledge assessments. But for these education programs in particular, our North Star is really smiling face holding a badge, right? That's the goal. How do we give these people the skills that they need so they can actually join us in the cloud ecosystem and get employment with one of our customers, a partner, even us sometimes. So that's really what we're driving towards, and targeting specific audiences that might be underrepresented and helping them get those opportunities.
So do you have any perspective? Obviously, you've talked about how your education programs target everyone from, K all the way up. Do you feel that the computing skills, the cloud, technology, what is sort of the right age from the perspective of, somebody who's sitting at home, a mom or parents or families, or even individuals thinking about when they should introduce these types of skills and concepts to, to others?
We think the right age is whatever age you are right now. We really think it's important that we help K through 12 with curriculum, courseware, interesting devices that will engage and inspire younger learners. We also build content that's paced appropriately for younger learners and explains topics. There are things we take for granted with a corporate learner with a STEM degree that we cannot take for granted when we're teaching younger learners. And so we don't think there's any right age. We really think it's about bringing the right kind of training material for them. So with Get IT, where we're bringing material to 12 and 13-year-old young women for building applications, or it's our academy material where we're bringing it to the higher ed institutions, or our adult reskilling program like Restart, we approach each of them working backwards from who we believe the learner is and what prerequisites they might come to the table with, and build the appropriate training material from that perspective. But there's no age limit. There's none too early, and also none too late. We've had mid-career people go through Restart, for example, and get that first cloud level role much into their adult career.
What do you recommend for business owners who are looking to upskill members of their team? Where do they get started? How do they get started?
The most important thing is to work backwards from what are your organizational goals and what are the skills that you currently have on your team and what's the gap. And from there, we can help companies, business owners, build a plan around designing training that will address all of the learners in all of the roles that the organization has in mind. Another recommendation we have is train everybody and leave no learner behind. Often companies look at sort of the usual suspects for skilling in the cloud, your developers, your systems operations people, your infrastructure people. But fundamental cloud knowledge is actually useful for everybody. And you certainly want to go deep with your builders who will be creating and deploying the workloads that you're going to need. But you really need to train everyone at a base level around digital skills in the cloud who are actually going to be using the applications that are being built and deployed in the cloud. And if you look at a lot of the roles that cloud skills are being asked for in job requisitions, it's becoming quite varied, where people need cloud awareness and cloud skills in lots of roles that aren't immediately, intuitively the ones you would leap to. Like the ones I mentioned earlier around film production. So much of film production and animation is actually done and rendered on the back end with the cloud. that it does require having that skill set. When I go visit my doctor today, he walks in, shakes my hand, and then sits down at a computer terminal, and we talk. And he's entering data backed in the cloud the entire time we're having our session. And so there's lots of jobs for which cloud awareness and digital skills around the cloud are required, and certainly the traditional roles that we think about. And so building a training program that works backwards from thinking about everyone who's going to be interacting with the cloud, and then doubling down on the people who are going to need those deep skills. Security should really be job one, and making sure that you're focusing on training everyone around security in the cloud and training the developers on all the options. So we see a lot of organizations lift and shift and move to the cloud, and they kind of take what they have and they move it from one platform to another, which is great. But they're not leveraging everything they could leverage. And a lot of it comes down to a lack of awareness of what you're capable of doing in a cloud environment, where I don't have a one-size-fits-all solution and I have lots of options. But you have to understand what those options are before you can leverage them and make them a part of your applications. So looking at the objectives on what businesses want to do, sometimes the lift and shift is in a panic mode. They've run out of a resource, compute, storage, or something, and they've got to move. Great, we'll help you move and train what you need to do the move. But after that, continually training and creating an environment where you can do the follow-on training becomes super important.
So tell us a little bit more about how these types of education programs and this type of training can help accelerate diversity and inclusion in high tech.
Yeah, I love this topic because education is an enabler and a great equalizer and a democratizer of access to this technology and the knowledge on how to use and leverage this technology. So we think investing heavily in making access to training and education programs widely available is important. And we've seen positive long-term impact on employees, customers, partners, communities where we implement these programs, especially where we're helping underrepresented communities in tech, including women, by making access to these programs available to all kinds of users and making it easier for them to get into the roles that they would like to get into, even if they haven't followed a traditional path of a 4-year computer science degree. Right? There's lots of avenues to getting into cloud roles, especially at the entry level. And so we're very intentional about creating programs that help foster diversity in the tech workforce, whether we're bringing them in through higher ed systems that we fed with one of our K through 12 programs, or we're reskilling them mid-career. And by reducing and eliminating a lot of the costs for the training, makes it more accessible, but it's also building training that can be consumed in different ways, from that bite-sized on-demand content that we talked about earlier, all the way to day-long 3-day courses, or even intense sprint-driven multi-week or multi-month courses. So providing as many of those alternatives as we can lets us make the training more available and help feed the cloud ecosystem a more diverse workforce.
What are your thoughts on certification then? What are some of the benefits of getting certifications, and what is it that you offer? Certifications
in particular become an important industry validated credential that represents a specific skill set. And so our certifications, for example, we have a cloud practitioner certification, which represents an awareness and an understanding of cloud platforms and what they're capable of, and some of the options that are available if you should choose to leverage a cloud platform. It is our most popular certification, and we have many people getting the certification, and not just traditional computer engineering, computer science, business IT, but people that are actually using the cloud and need an awareness of it, because decision makers who are making decisions about deploying on the cloud, or the users who are actually driving and feeding the data into the applications that are deployed on the cloud, all need an awareness of the cloud. And then we have a tiered level of certifications beyond that. So we have certifications for solutions architects, developers, systems operations. And then we also have a set of specialized certifications in topics like data analytics, security, networking, machine learning. So for those that need those deeper level skills, they can get an industry validated credential that actually represents those skills. And our certifications are really focused on production deployment at scale kind of scenarios. So they really represent an understanding of how to leverage and use our platform in real world environments.
So tell us who a typical student would be for a certification. What have you seen in terms of their backgrounds and their careers?
For our cloud practitioner certification, we've seen a wide range of people get that certification. So, an example that comes to mind is with our Restart program, we had a fitness trainer in the Boston area who was about to open up a gym when the pandemic happened. And of course, that became very problematic very quickly as the lockdown happened. And so he was at an inflection point and had an opportunity to think about a career change. And he leveraged Restart, where he picked up Linux and Python, networking, security, relational database skills, and an AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. And he actually got a job as a customer service analyst at at a research and development company in Boston, one of our customers. And so that's an example of somebody using the Cloud Practitioner certification at an entry level, caught in a little bit of a hard spot. Another one that comes to mind is an individual who is working at a hotel chain in Manhattan, who was also impacted by the pandemic and also used the Restart program as a way to pivot their career and is now an intern at one of our AWS partners. And part of getting that job was getting the Cloud Practitioner certification. Her internship went so well that she's now full-time principal at that company. And her background was in hospitality management. And she was able to pivot her career with a Cloud Practitioner certification and land an entry-level role that she's still in today. We certainly have our associate and professional level certifications are a little more mainstream in what you would expect. So these are people that are in roles like solutions architect, cloud developer, site reliability engineer, that are getting our certifications as part of their continued professional learning. And using these certifications sometimes as a way to help demonstrate their capability. Sometimes they're using it in a job application scenario where they're using the credential to demonstrate I have these skills and it's not just me telling you that or writing it on my resume. And then others are using it as part of just career development for helping them get promoted or getting the next job that they're interested in by demonstrating that they have those skills.
The pandemic has really changed the landscape of L&D. What are some of the changes that you've seen over the last several months?
From a learning and development perspective, organizations are having to look at how they can use training and create a culture of learning within their companies as a way to not only reskill or upskill their existing staff, but also using learning and development as a retention mechanism and increasing the satisfaction of their employees and their professional development of their employees within their company so that they can continuously grow and skill themselves and stay on top of a technology that's moving rapidly. So that need was always there. And then you introduce the pandemic on top of it. And a lot of customers have been having to think about how can we continue to provide a nurturing learning environment for our professionals remotely and digitally by leveraging new modalities without losing our pace of innovation and keeping our business running. There's a recent ESG research insight study where 96% of IT decision makers surveyed agreed that AWS certifications improved retention of their staff. And so this becomes interesting when you think about, well, if I've already hired you and you're doing the job, why do I need to get you certified? What difference does it really make? You're already in the role. And it turns out creating a learning and development culture focused on development and learning within your company actually becomes a retention mechanism and an employee satisfaction mechanism, and that becoming a talent attractor that's known for giving your people the opportunity to develop themselves and pick up industry validated credentials like an AWS certification actually helps you retain those employees. Conversely, 62% of IT professionals report that growth and development opportunities were the biggest reasons why they changed employers. So that's pretty telling. So not only does allowing your people to learn and develop internally and get certifications and grow themselves become a retention mechanism, it's also a significant driver in why employees choose to leave. And so we've seen companies like National Australia Bank that have become a talent attractor by creating a culture of learning and celebrating and rewarding learning that occurs and certifications. And so they've created mechanisms where employees who get certifications, can wear a distinctive piece of clothing one day a week, for example. Sounds, like it wouldn't be a big deal, but it becomes a big deal. And if you create a culture that celebrates things like certifications and course completions and learning of new skills, the word gets around and you become a career destination for people to go to and enhance their career. It also engenders and creates loyalty and retention. And then when you mix that by having a diverse workforce in terms of a mix of entry-level, mid, and professional people that can mentor the learners at lower levels, you really get a nice flywheel of improvement around creating this culture of learning, becoming a career destination instead of someplace that employees want to depart because they feel like they can't grow themselves in their career. So those are the kind of things that we would recommend from a learning and development perspective, and the kind of impact that can have on employee retention and productivity.
So certainly there is a direct tie to L&D and the bottom line.
Yeah, we absolutely. These kind of skills and accelerating the development of these skills, the longer you can keep employees that understand your corporate culture and understand the business that you're in, the more efficient you will become. If you're constantly turning over employees and you're not the kind of career destination stop that employees are seeking, you'll never get the added benefit of retaining employees who are skilled. And by creating an environment where they can pick up new skills, these are people who deeply understand your corporate culture, your business, and you're skilling them on new technologies. They're the ones that can help advance your consumption, adoption, and ability to leverage these new technologies much faster.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your work experiences that you feel helped your career trajectory.
Well, everybody's career is a stepping stone, one building upon another. I've been a developer and a solutions architect for many years, where I iteratively and incrementally built applications and software systems for large global scale for lots of different customers. And those experiences really help me every day when I plan, develop, and build education training programs that are focused on relevant topics for cloud builders, because I can put myself in the shoes of what they're going to be doing when they complete the training and help prepare them for the kind of situations, scenarios, and challenges that they're going to encounter in the workplace. So that's been really beneficial to me to take the learning over, having been a practitioner for many years, and then help build training programs that target those experiences and skills development that I know they're going to need, when they get into that small conference room at the whiteboard, having to solve a hard technical problem.
So what would you say is some of the best career advice you were given that you'd like to share with individuals who might be beginning their cloud computing journey?
So luckily for me, I actually get to do this when I talk with our Restart cohorts and our higher ed academy students. And so some years ago, shortly after I graduated college, an early mentor of mine told me to get good at researching and answering questions. And it challenged me, have you read the documentation? Have you searched all the help sites and frequently asked questions? Have you joined a user group that's focused on the topic? Are you experimenting on solutions in a sandbox? And he was fond of saying, and I'll never forget, have you pushed all the buttons? And what he meant by that was, have I tried everything that's available in front of me before asking for help and somebody else is to come in and help me? And this learning approach, made me a bit more self-reliant and prepared me for this sort of lifelong learning, and helped me develop the skills for continuous learning and problem solving and troubleshooting, which have really served me well. So years later, I joined Amazon, and we have a leadership principle called Learn and Be Curious, which really gets at the same idea of you need to get good at learning, and learning never stops, and you need to keep asking why and then go learn why. And so when I talk to new cloud learners, I really encourage them to push all the buttons and get good at it, because it's a skill that you're going to need throughout your entire career.
Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. This was really great. You guys are doing some amazing work. And hopefully we get to have you again as a guest and hear more.
Thanks. That would be great. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Kevin. And we'll see you next time on Sarder TV.